Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to Notes from the Pastor Cave. See, I'm getting better at getting that thing up there in front of the camera, I'm just going to say this right off. I'm very impressed with my color coordination today. The hat and the shirt, they just work. If I'd had some kind of a khaki pair of headphones, I would have used those too, and that would have been absolutely perfect. But we are. Let me remind you, we need new subscribers. Not that we don't like the old subscribers, but we need new subscribers because we have to let that total run up, and we're making that run at 1,000 so that good things kind of work for us on YouTube. And you kind of have to hit that 1,000 mark before there's some special things that take place. You get a lot more exposure, and let's face it, getting the Word of God out to everybody is the most important thing we can do. It would be silly for me to be doing what I'm doing if that were not the reason. So please like and subscribe. We are now not only do we run these videos up on Facebook all the time, but we also are now running these videos up on MeWe, and if you haven't joined MeWe yet, it's great social media, and we actually have a group in MeWe called Notes from the Pastor Cave where the videos are posted, and it's much easier to comment and chat and all those kinds of things. So think about doing that. Now, I have to tell you, we are still in chapter 34 of Exodus, and I think probably a couple more times we'll do it. And today I want to share with you kind of a couple of disparate thoughts. There's nothing that's connected here, but it's points that I kind of want to make as we go along. And the first one is this. Starting in verse 18, God is, again, speaking to Moses, and he says, "You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you, at the time appointed in the month of Abib, for in the month Abib you came out from Egypt. All that open the womb are mine. All your male livestock, the firstborn of cow and sheep, the firstborn of a donkey, you shall redeem with a lamb. Or if you will not redeem it, you shall break its neck." In other words, get it done. "All the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem." And then this little phrase at the end. "And none shall appear before me empty-handed." And none shall appear before me empty-handed. And you think, at first you look at that and you think, well, God, that's not really fair. Right? Because life is just full of the haves and the have-nots, and whenever human societies, human cultures try to correct that problem of the haves and the have-nots, they can't do it. They don't do it. All they end up doing is forming a different elitism than the former elitism that they were trying to escape. And so you say, well, what's the deal with this God? I thought you were a God of the poor. I thought you were a God who loved the poor, took care of the poor. None shall appear before me empty-handed. Well, first of all, God made provision for the poor to help them in this, okay? And it has to do with bringing sacrifices that are financially of lesser value to the Lord, but not appearing empty-handed before the Lord. Okay, and then the second thing is that this whole idea, it really connects with the idea of the tithe, because it is an act of faith. It's an act of faith to say, I'm going to find a way to not appear before the Lord empty-handed. I'm going to find a way to have something to bring and present to the Lord. And there are certainly times in our lives where we would say, and I've told you, some of our poverty stories before, those weeks where you have to decide between diapers or bread and milk. There are certainly times when it's a challenge would have been a challenge for them not to appear empty-handed. So it had to come forth as an act of faith, which is very much like the tithe. Now, I have to tell you that from the time, from the week, really, that I became a follower of Christ and had my first job, I began tithing. And it was a practice that was taught to me. And so I began tithing. But tithing for me was always an act of obedience. Okay, God says I should do it, and so I'm going to do it. And it was just kind of a dry and rote thing. And then somebody brought up to me, and I think it might have been a book that I was reading about 4 or 5 years ago, that the tithe is more than that. The tithe is not just an act of obedience, but the tithe is an act of faith. Okay, and it only takes picturing the farmer or the husbandman or the herdsman to figure that out. All right, so this guy grows grapes. This is what he does. This is how he makes his living. This is how he puts food on the table. And that first ripe cluster of beautiful grapes comes in. And God challenges him, take the first and the best. Take that 10% and bring it to the Lord and present it to him. And what that's saying is, God, I don't know what the weather's going to be tomorrow. Maybe a hurricane's going to come through or a tornado. Maybe the locusts are going to show up. Maybe the enemies are going to show up and just wipe all there's just a million. Some kind of a disease is going to run through my crops. But I'm taking that first 10% in faith and I'm giving it to you, believing that you can give it back. That no matter what happens from here on out, you're greater than any circumstance, and so therefore you can resupply me. You can make sure that in this next season of life that my family continues to eat and I continue to eat and all those things. So tithing is not just an act of obedience; it's an act of faith, and we see the same thing here. To say, hey, I'm at the appropriate time of year, when I need to go appear before the Lord, I'm going to believe that I have enough. I'm going to believe that God has given me enough so that I can appear before him, right? I have a half a dozen sheep. They're really important to me, and one's just been born, and now I'm going to bring that, and I'm going to give it to the Lord. That's, potentially 1/7 of my sheep. But I'm going to do it as an act of faith. So it's really kind of a gorgeous and beautiful thing. And the other thing is, as far as the modern believer, the New Testament believer is concerned, when it says, none shall appear before me empty-handed, you can make sure that never happens by simply presenting yourself. Okay, so you say, and these principles are always the same, right? Because God doesn't change. Moses at the burning bush is there. The only thing he has to give to God is himself, and a stick. Somehow I don't think the stick really counts. And it's the same with us. Okay, what God is asking of us is that we never appear before him empty-handed, because we should bring ourselves. We need to bring ourselves into appearance. We can't hold ourselves off somewhere or reserve ourselves away from him, even though we're bodily in God's presence. Sometimes our minds and our spirits are somewhere else. God says, no, don't do that. Bring something to me, and if you have nothing else to bring the everything that you have, which is yourself, right? This is the only body that I've got. This is the only brain that I get in my life, and so I can always bring that before the Lord. So we're gonna stop that here today. And because there's a couple more things that I want to get to, and we're already at almost the 10-minute mark. And it went a little longer than I thought. There was a little bit more to that. But as I said, these are not necessarily, the scriptures are connected, but the ideas that I'm bringing forth in these next couple of videos are not necessarily connected to each other. So have a absolutely fantastic day. And I say to you, as I always do, Vita brevis, gloria aeterna. Life is short, glory is eternal.